Welcome friend to this session of state chart diagrams. In this session we will try to understand the fundamental of state chart diagram. We will also go through some samples by which we can know the different elements and or we can say different notations which we need to use while we draw the state chart diagrams. First thing, it's a very state chart diagrams are very rarely used diagrams because most of the complications which you can represent by state chart diagram can be represented very easily by using either sequence, collaboration or activity diagrams. So if you have gone through the sequence, collaboration or activity diagrams, from my perspective, if you draw them properly, you don't need a state chart diagram. But still there are scenarios in projects where you would like to have a state chart diagram for more readability and probably to give a different view of the technical architecture. Basically, state chart diagram depicts the different states from which object goes through. For instance, it's possible that you have a product and the product first goes to the inventory, and from inventory it goes to the probably manufacturing. From manufacturing it goes for sales. So what happens is basically your product has moved from one state to other state, and while it moves from one state to other state, it has events, it has transitions, etc. So in case you think that in your project you have such kind of scenarios where you have like thousands of events, and then you have thousands of transitions from which results the objects to move from one state to other state, then definitely you need to use state chart diagram. Basically, there are three important things in a state chart diagram. As I said, that when we say there is a state, then definitely there is an action which triggers that state to move from one state to other state. And second, these actions are triggered by triggered by events, and the guard is a condition which evaluates which action to be triggered. So for instance, here we have a state called as bulb off, and then we have a state called as bulb on. So these both are states, and states are represented by using the oval shape. Now the event is on. Okay, so the on triggers the action, that is bulb on. So basically events are written at the left hand side of the slash, while actions are written at the right hand side of the slash. So the way you represent your state chart diagram, or the way the notations are in state chart diagram, is you write first the event and then the action. So basically here are the different ways we can write a state chart diagram. For instance, I said first we write an event and then we write an action. So for example, if the event is mouse click, then you please go and open the folder, but the condition is that this mouse click should be a double click. If again the event is mouse click, but again the condition that it is a right click, then show the folder properties. So in this way we have event, guard and the action. Guard is nothing but it's a condition. So basically we say we define, so when we show object state, let's say this is object 1 and this is object 2. So what we do is that we show an arrow, then we first write an event, then a slash, and then action. So here's a simple sample of the state chart diagram. You can see that it's the same sample which I've shown previously, but probably now that we have gone through all the notations, we can understand this in a more better format. So here's the state, here's the second state. The transition happens when the event is on, and the action is that the bulb is on. Basically what we will do is that we will just walk through a simple state chart diagram of a courier. So first thing in a state chart diagram is that you have a start which is represented by a dark arrow, and the end of these states are represented by using dark circles with white circles. Now when you move from one state to other state, the states are represented in an oval diagram, in an oval shape. So for example, we have a state that is dispatched, and then we have a state which is delivered, and then we have a state which is undelivered. So basically when we move from the dispatch to the deliver, right, then there is definitely actions and events. So currently I've shown that I've shown only the events and then the states, but you can definitely write the methodology which we discussed previously, where we had events and transitions. So basically, if you find that, or if you think that in your project you have a lot of events, you have a lot of states, you have a lot of transitions, then definitely go for using the state chart diagram. But again, as I said previously, that if you look at the activity diagram, sequence diagram and collaboration diagrams, if you really draw those diagrams properly, you don't really need to use a state chart diagram. I hope that you have understood state chart diagrams, and what you can do is basically, in order to practice the state chart diagram, not state chart, I'll say any UML diagram, is that whenever you discuss with your colleagues or whenever you want to show your presentations of your technical design, always use UML diagrams. In this way you never forget the notations, and it becomes a habit, it becomes a culture, I will say rather, to talk only using UML diagrams. I hope that we were able to explain you state chart diagrams. See you in the next UML diagrams.